What's going on, everyone? Today I'm just going to be going over the very basic fundamentals of towing, which is pretty simple. It's literally loading up a car and unloading up a car. The equipment that we're using today is a Vulcan bed with an 8-point strap setup, and I'm going to go more into the 8-point straps on why we use 8-point straps or why I prefer 8-point straps over J-hooks. Most of it is because we're in Michigan. Most cars are extremely rusty, and the J-hooks just, they just break the frame if they're too tight. I also don't like shock loading our winch, which means that what we see is a lot of people, and this is the way I don't like it, and I'll explain why. They'll load a car up on the bed, they'll put 2 J-hooks behind it, and they'll just rely on the winch to keep those J-hooks tight and keep the car on the bed. Not only is that not legal, it's just not safe. And the reason it's not safe is because your winch is a mechanical securement. It is not a physical securement, and mechanical securements can fail. And when mechanical securements fail, they release the tension that was on your J-hooks holding your car onto your bed, and now you have absolutely no securements. So that's not legal. I highly recommend not doing that, because not only does it stress out your cable or your synthetic rope, it stresses out the gears in your winch because they're always staying tight. And shock loading is when your vehicle is shifting back and forth and those gears just keep on, that tension just stays on those gears. So it's not healthy for the winch. The winch serves 2 purposes: loading a car up and unloading a car. Nowhere in the manual of your winch or on your winch does it specify or state that it is for securing your load, so we are not going to do that today. I actually don't recommend doing it ever. Some of the bridles that you're going to be hooking up with, very basic. I use 3 different types of bridles. This is going to be what's called a Mini J bridle. It's going to be inserted into the Mini J slots that are actually underneath the car. It's an oval slot with rounded metal. It's usually double reinforced, and it is the primary spot for these. That is going to be your basic, I'd say your basic bridle. Not everybody's favorite, but you can't mess this up unless you put it in an unspecified hole underneath the car, and then you add tension to it, and it's just going to carve through that unibody or on that frame, and then you have some serious body and frame damage. So cautious when using these. I can make another video on where these exactly go, or you could probably find one on YouTube. Not a big deal. So cautious on where these go. Cool thing about the bridles is that you do have the chain grab hooks right here, and these chain grab hooks are for if you want to shorten up the bridle and potentially make it shorter if you have a long bed truck or something that you're pulling up on your bed and you need to kind of eat up 2 or 3 feet. You can eat up the length of this bridle. So that's enough about this. This is called the Mini J bridle. So just put this aside. Next one is the most common. It's the big J hooks, big J hook bridle, which is also the same. It has the chain grabbers up front. This is going to be more so to go underneath your lower control arm of vehicles, and it's most common and popular for larger applications. Well, I'm not going to use it on the Subaru behind me because it runs and drives, and that's the great thing about 8-point straps, is that they're better for towing. They're not great for accidents, because if you have a vehicle, it looks like that one over there, obviously you have no wheels for the 8 points to go on, so that's not going to work. So the large J hooks are great for axles and lower control arms for you to grab onto. Mostly the most popular, most common. This is another soft strap type bridle. I call it a sports car bridle. The working load limits for these are actually 4,700 pounds, which is actually really, really good. And it specifies, I believe the angle's on here too. Yeah, so 4,700 pounds at a 60-degree angle. So at a 60-degree angle, it's going to look something similar to, well, that's more like a 45. So you could probably do more at 60, I believe. And it says the ultimate load and braking load is 14,000 pounds at a 60 degrees. So that's pretty good. I'm comfortable with this, but sports car bridle for sure. Self-explanatory in my opinion. it's going to wrap underneath your lower control arm and just clip back in. These are probably the safest because there's no way for this to fall off. If there's slack in your cable and your car hops across your bed, this is the most secure. You're not going to get away from that unless you physically unhook this. So that's going to be your sports car bridle for this. Once again, lower control arm, wrap around. I use them on Camaros, Mustangs, Corvettes, any exotic car that you don't want to really put a J-hook, especially in the summertime for Woodward Dream Cruise here in Michigan. Big J's, chains underneath low profile vehicles, you're not going to make the owner a very happy person. The other reason I use this for are electric cars and Teslas, because this is a non-conductive material, such as my synthetic rope is a non-conductive material as well. And that's partly why I switched over to a more, get away from the chains, and I switched over to more of a synthetic style way of towing, is because these electric vehicles are out on the road and they are going to be a huge electric problem. So no chains really, unless it's a J-hooks. No chains for strapping down. This is all 8-point straps. So we'll get into that. So this is, once again, we call it a sports car bridle or a soft strap bridle. Whatever you prefer, whatever you want. Stuck this away real quick. Okay, for operations of the tow truck, to release your winch, you're just going to pull this out and lock it down. Locking it down in the main tongue right here. That's going to be how you unlock your winch. Now it should be in free spool. To operate your bed, most things are color coordinated, and all you got to do is read, believe it or not. To go up and down, we got this blue level right here. Down is actually up. Is weird, but when we're referring to these labels, the down position is actually going to be to the front of the bed, as in the front of the bed is going down. So we are going down right now. And obviously forward is labeled forward, back is labeled back, going forward, going back. All the way out. We want our support to be on the ground. Get the weight off the bed of the truck, and we are good. If you really wanted to, you could dump your airbags. For this demonstration, I don't really feel the need. Okay, so the big mistake people make is when they drive a vehicle up, is that they do leave this bridle, this hook, right in this general area. This is called an impact zone. And what happens is that the vehicle will start to roll up the bed, and the front bumper or underneath will sometimes grab onto this and could potentially cause damage. So if you are driving the vehicle up the bed, I recommend sucking some of that in. And that's what we're gonna do. So we're going to lock our winch. Give it a good tap. Then I'm gonna explain something here. You're gonna listen for a click, just like that. Then we're gonna go back and forth, just a couple. And what that does is that when the winch locks in, that initial arm shooting in is pushing the gears together, but most of the time the gears are just making contact on the teeth. And rocking it back and forth allows it to dig more into those teeth, and that clutch can now engage deeper into the gears. And that's how you prevent shock loading. So it's healthy to sit there and push in your free spool back in and give the winch a little back and forth just to mesh those gears together, so you're not tip loading those gears and potentially rounding those gears, which could potentially cause an unplanned slip or release of the winch going into free spool, and there goes your car, and then you just look stupid. So we don't want to look stupid, so we're not going to do that. And it just preventative maintenance, take care of yourself. So now we're going to suck in this cable and give it a good about 2 or 3 feet from the back of the bed. That's okay right there. Perks of having a synthetic rope is that it can bundle a little bit up into the winch, and it doesn't hold memory, doesn't form any knots. You could pull it out and it will stay straight. It just doesn't like sharps. And what sharps mean are obviously sharp edges. So looking out for sharp edges on the bed or filing down anything that you see is one of the disadvantages of having a synthetic rope. As long as you keep it away from sharp edges, it is stronger than cable actually, and it's actually a significantly lighter and cost efficient. And it's just, in my opinion, it's just better. So when I use 8-point straps, I usually line them up in a certain way. I eat up all the slack by having the rear one go all the way back and then all the way to the second hole, and then vice versa. I put the ratchet for the front wheel down here, and I bring it all the way up to the top. Now the reason I do that is once I pull the vehicle up here, I mark where I want my front tire to be with this T-bone right here, or wishbone, whatever you guys want to call it. I just call it a T-bone because that's what it says. Working load limits for these ratchet straps are 3,300 pounds. So if you really think about it, that's 3,300 per strap. That's, you know, that's over 12,000 pounds of securement. So you're pretty good for a vehicle that only weighs about 3,200 pounds. And that's just guesstimation for the vehicle. I'm not really sure. So T-bone right here is pretty much, this is where I'm going to want my front tire to stop. It's going to be right about here. And I can just look out the driver's window and I can drive the vehicle up. This is great for impounds. It's great for just basic tows, because you're not touching underneath the car, and there's no chance of anybody ever claiming that you damaged their tie rod or damaged their CV axle or punctured a hole in their oil pan from your J-hooks or any types of securement that you put underneath the car. Especially what I want to resort to from the beginning was the rusty cars. The rusty cars, the rusty frames. You're putting big J's, you're tightening it, you're putting tension on those chains. You could potentially break or carve through a rusty frame, and then therefore you have major structural damage. So you definitely want to avoid doing that. And this is just a way that kind of eliminates all liability, unless you actually yourself get into an accident and you just total your car in your truck. So this is just, I preferred a better way. So now we're going to get in our vehicle, and I'm not going to move the